Hello, I'm Margarita Noyes, and this is Homeschool Questions and Answers. Today we're going to talk about reading your children biographies. Now, as I'm sure you know, what you read to your children will be like a seed into their imagination and into their heart, and it will become part of their worldview and part of their character. And if you can give your children good examples in literature, hero tales, true to life stories of real people and what they really did, that is some of the best food for the soul that you can offer your children. Now, I want to remind you that if your children are feeding their hunger for stories and hunger for input by watching TV or by consuming low-level entertainment, then they won't have an appetite for biographies, because biographies are real. They're stories of real people, and they might not be as exciting as some of the sensational things that come on TV and in movies. So you might want to keep the kids away from the TV and movies so that their natural hunger for stories asserts itself. And then you feed the hunger with excellent stories of real people. Now, I'd like to give you a feel for what homeschoolers in America have been feeding their children for the past 20 or 30 years. In America, the homeschoolers make use of biographies a lot. And in fact, as my children were growing up, I had whole shelves filled with sets of biographies written for children. Now, if this doesn't exist in your culture, then you might have to write them yourselves. Find stories of heroic people and tell them to your children and write them down. And maybe somebody with a knack for writing can make them exciting and publish them. A lot of stuff like that was published in the homeschool tradition 30 years ago, and we have it today. But let me show you some of what we've got in America now and what can be translated. If you don't want to write original stuff and if you don't have it. First, I want to show you this series. There's just dozens of titles in this series: young architect, young statesman, young different people who were something. So this one is about Davy Crockett. And it says he was a young pioneer. So there's lots and lots in this series. Then we have the Meet So-and-so series. Here we've got Meet Thomas Jefferson. I think this book might be on the second grade level. And here I happen to have Meet George Washington. There's also Meet Abraham Lincoln, Meet Christopher Columbus, Meet Martin Luther King Jr. There's all kinds of these books in this series. They're great men from American history. And some of you should be able to write some books like this for heroes from your culture. Try to find those stories. Tell them to your child so your child will be proud of being a citizen of your country. Have a national pride that's based on true goodness in the forefathers. Here's one. Heroes of America. Martin Luther King Jr. Illustrated Classics. We have a whole bunch of illustrated classics. And in this series, there's a book about George Washington, Benjamin Franklin, Eleanor Roosevelt, Daniel Boone, Jackie Robinson, Clara Barton, Babe Ruth. Lots of American heroes. And I would say this is about a 3rd to 4th grade level. Here I have a book getting a little older This is probably maybe for middle school, 12, 13 years of age. This one is the adventure series, God's Adventurer, and it's about Hudson Taylor, who was a missionary to China. Great stories. We have lots and lots of missionary biographies. Here's a biography of a person that I've met. He's alive today. He was an American named Bruce Olson, who went to a Stone Age tribe of Motilone Indians in Colombia and converted them to Christ. He's still with them. He's in his probably 60s right now, or 70s. Great book. And finally, I'll show you this one. This is called The Hiding Place. It's the story of Corrie ten Boom. And someday I'm going to do a homeschool book club on this for homeschoolers, because it's just full of lessons of life. That is a handful of books that I grabbed from my shelf. Over the years, I've had entire shelves of biographies for my children to read. Biographies are good because they show the world as it really is, and that's very good for teaching your children what life really is like. Plus, they tend to be written about people who are heroic, and that inspires a young person. Who needs a story of Superman if you can know a story of a real person who did something even better? So I recommend that you find stories of real people who did remarkable things and tell them to your children. And if possible, write them down and share them with one another in your homeschooling community. I understand that you may not have a developed homeschooling community, but if you are pioneering this movement, you may have to actually produce the materials that you'll use and others in your country will use. So find the good biographies. Tell the stories to your children. Write the stories down and share them and even publish them. Stories of great people from your country's history will feed the soul of your child and will help them to become a great member of your country's current history. I'm Margarita Noyes, and this is Homeschool Questions and Answers.